Hey, Instagram, how you doing? You popped up before Facebook. This is the first time I've been live for a couple weeks now. I've recorded it a couple times and I've posted it, but this is the first time I've gone live. For the folks over at Instagram, the title for this week is Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Me. And so we're going to try and figure out what all those have in common. Not going to be too hard. I'm going to tell you right off the bat. It's fasting. Right now I'm on a fast, and all three of those people in history have fasted. In fact, lots of people in history have fasted. It's something that has been done since the dawn of humanity. Fasting has been part of not only religious practices and rituals, but also just out of necessity. It's only been in the last 100 years or so that 100, maybe 10 years, I don't know, that we haven't had a food shortage. Now we have a food abundance. And so the last couple of days, I really have been digging in really quite heavily into the idea of intermittent fasting and what does that look like. If you have, stick with me, if you have if you're overweight or even slightly overweight, or you're dealing with type 2 diabetes or any metabolic syndrome of any kind, metabolic disorder, this is probably something that might be beneficial to you. Obviously, it's something that I read up a lot about just recently and have been kind of over the last couple of weeks or so. And then I've watched a couple of documentaries on fasting. I've watched several doctors and PhDs with regards to what are the benefits of fasting and what are some of the drawbacks of fasting. And so right now I'm on, let's see, hour 23 of fasting. So I'm just drinking water right now. And I think some of the benefits that you can see out of short-term fasting, so there are lots of different ways to intermittently fast. You can fast for a duration in a day. So let's say we don't eat so you eat at noon and then you stop eating at 6 o'clock. So that would be kind of an intermittent fast. You can go a couple days on, 2, 3, 4 days on, and then pop off of your fast, or you can go longer than that. So lots of different ways to implement fasting in your health routine. Now, really, there's been a ton of research over the last, 5-6 years on fasting and how metabolically it is beneficial to you. For me, I'm not super overweight at all. In fact, I'm not overweight at all. However, I do have that I have not been able to get rid of through exercise and diet. I have a good diet. The thing I haven't been able to get rid of is this small, and it just comes along with being 42 years old, small bit of fat in my belly. Not much, just a little bit. But no matter what I do, I'm not able to get rid of it. And so I started looking into how do you get rid of that what we call visceral fat in your midsection. Guys, a lot of times as we get into our 40s, late 30s and 40s and 50s, a lot of times we call that beer belly. I don't have a beer belly, but I do have a little bit of extra fat there. That can cause problems down the road. So some of the things that people are concerned about when we talk about fasting are starvation. Doesn't your body go into starvation mode, and don't you start utilizing your doesn't your body start to utilize your muscle for energy? And the answer is yes, but very tiny amounts. So the way that your body works, okay, we no longer, there's a huge fallacy out there about calorie in, calorie out, right? That's what we always think of when we think about weight loss, right? Or a healthy lifestyle. This idea of all the diets out there are calorie-restricted diets. So we think about how many calories are you eating in a day, and then how much are you exerting? How many are you burning off? That's really a bad way to look at health and wellness and weight control and healthiness and just overall wellness, because calories and the burning of calories is really a physics issue, right? The idea of energy being burned up is physics, right? But it's not physiological. Your body doesn't. Calories is just a bad way to look at the way food interacts with your body, because the fallacy over time has been you eat a calorie and you burn a calorie, so calorie in, calorie out. So if you eat 2,000 calories and you burn off, I don't know, 1,500 calories, you have, the idea is that the energy that is being stored from the excess goes into your muscles and fat and things of that nature. It gets stored as fat. So all those calories are basically, when we're eating, is the idea is to store energy. That's the purpose of eating, and has been since the dawn of humanity. The purpose of eating is to store energy, right? And so our bodies do this very well. Okay, so we eat, let's say, 1,700 calories. We exert maybe, I don't know, 1,200 calories. The rest of that gets stored either as glycogen, so carbohydrates, and excess glucose gets stored as what's called glycogen. That's fast energy. So if we think about it this way, if we take an analogy, the best way to look at it is you have your fridge. Your fridge, if you open it up, you have easy access to food that you can easily get at and eat, right? And then you also, that is the calorie in, calorie out. Always, over time, people have looked at the way that we eat as basically a fridge, right? Our body is like that fridge. We take food in, it gets stored in that fridge. Anything we don't burn up right away gets stored in that fridge, right? Or anytime we want energy, we go into that fridge, pull it out, and eat it. But we never really account for what we call, I like to think of as the freezer, right? And those are the excess fat storage that we have, right? It's that little pouch that I have right here in my belly. It's that excess fat storage. Well, that's harder to get to. The freezer is harder to get to than the fridge, okay? And so we like to burn up glucose, our body, that is fast energy. Our body loves to burn that up, and it always burns that up first, right? And so after we eat, any excess gets stored in our fat, right? So, and when I talk about calories, and why I say calorie in, calorie out isn't the way we should look at it any longer, because calories, a calorie of a donut, for instance, so if you eat a donut that has 100 calories and you eat a kale salad that has 100 calories in it, those calories aren't equal to one another. Our body doesn't handle those calories the same, because fats, sugars, and sugars and proteins are handled completely differently within our body physiologically. And so when our body stores those, it's a lot easier for our body to go in and utilize that glucose. So what happens when our body eats something, let's say carbohydrates, or whatever it is, our blood sugar goes up, right? So when we eat carbohydrates or we eat something sugary, our blood sugar goes up, and then our pancreas does its job, and it releases insulin, right? And the insulin goes into our bloodstream to take our blood sugar level down, because our blood sugar level is spiking, and it knows that the insulin takes that blood sugar and then it transports it. This is its job. It transports it into the cell so that it can be used for energy, right? Well, the problem is that we, as Americans, over the last, I would say, 30 years or so, have moved from, and this is just studies have been out there, have moved from eating 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, to eating 6 to 10 meals a day. And that's, breakfast, morning snack, lunch, afternoon snack, probably maybe 2 afternoon snacks, dinner, and then we eat again somewhere 7, 8 o'clock at night. Well, the problem is our body doesn't have the ability any longer. Our glucose levels are high, right? And so our blood glucose levels are high. We utilize that easy storage. So we go into the refrigerator, we grab out, the insulin goes out and moves the glucose into our bodies, into our bloodstream, and into our tissues so that our organs can utilize that as energy, and our brain can utilize that. It's a normal function. The problem is that we continually feed ourselves. And so we don't have a chance to utilize the storage that's in the freezer, right? And so the storage, the energy that is in that freezer is our fat, right? The visceral fat that we have, any fat that we have in our body, never gets burned up, and we never get to utilize that storage, and we never go into that freezer because we're constantly using energy. Very rarely do we get into the fat storage to burn that off. So that's where we get this idea of fasting, right? And so if we're not eating anything at all, and we're just drinking water, after about a 24 to 48 hour period. All right, Instagram, sorry about that. We lost our tripod went, so sorry about that. Back where I was. So if we stop eating, right, and we are not on a calorie restricted diet, but we actually just start to fast and we don't eat at all, we go through our glucose storage, what we call glycogen. We go through that in about 24 to 48 hours, depending on how many carbohydrates you're eating in a day and how much sugar you're eating in a day, those carbohydrates, sugars, and depending on how much glycogen we have stored in our body. That is the easy, right? The easy refrigerator full of storage still. We can still pull that out. That's easy energy. And so we're pulling all that out. Once we go through that, guess where we get to go, right? We get to go into the freezer. So when we get into that freezer, that's when we start burning our fats, right? And we start burning fat. And that is over time, our bodies will burn up enough of that fat. If we stay on a fast for 2-3 days, we're burning fat. And guess what? Here's the thing. We've learned that through studies that if we are on a calorie restricted diet, let's say, I don't know, whatever it is, self-bleach diet or the ketogenic diet or any of those diets out there. Actually, I like the ketogenic diet and paleo diet. I think that as a lifestyle is kind of cool. But like, I don't know, let's say the Biggest Loser diet. That's one of the most popular out there today, is that calorie restriction. You move, you calorie restrict. The problem is that your metabolism slows down when you restrict your calories, right? It slows down, and it takes, and this is just the way your body works, so it sees less calories coming in, but it still sees calories in, and so it slows the metabolism down. Well, guess what? When you fast, that metabolism does not slow down. It slows down slightly, but then it stops. Not like when you calorie restrict diets. So the good thing about fasting is that you're not slowing your metabolism down like you are when you're restricting your calories. So lots of different benefits to fasting. It definitely regulates. It's great for regulating your insulin levels. It's great for regulating ghrelin. So ghrelin is another hormone that basically says, hey, I'm hungry, feed me, right? And so that's your stomach releases that. Your brain says, go ahead and eat. Too often, because we are on, Americans today are on a a diet that we are told to eat 6 to 10 times a day, ghrelin gets released that many times. So our body just regulates to that, and so we're often hungry because we're constantly eating, right? So when you fast, your body goes back to what it used to know, and it says, hey, I'm not hungry. After you make it past, for me, it was just now, 7 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock at night, where I eat my largest meal of the day. I have been really hungry. That's because ghrelin was released from my stomach. It went to my brain and says, hey, you're hungry, you need to eat. But when you push back past that point where if you can push back that hormonal response, ghrelin goes down, right? And so you don't have to worry about it. And that's why when you miss lunch, for instance, after about an hour, you forget about the fact that you're hungry, and then you just pick up at dinner again. So lots of different and amazing benefits to fasting. And so I would suggest giving it a try. I'm going to put together a little bit of this is going to be a couple-day diary. I'm going to come on tomorrow. I'm going to tell you how I feel. And we're just going to keep going with this. I think I probably will do it maybe 3 days. I think that's probably how long I'll fast. And then I'm going to go back into a diet that's kind of a lower carb, not a carb restricted, but a lower carb diet. So I hope you got some out of this. It's also great. Obviously, it's been used in religious rituals for when you are hungry. You turn to prayer during that time. So I've been doing that a lot just over the last hour or so because I was fixing food for the kids. So it's great from that aspect too. It really helps you refocus things. But there is just some great benefits to fasting. I suggest that you really look it up and do some research on it. But definitely remember, if you're looking to lose weight, it's a great way to lose weight. Intermittent fasting implementing into maybe a low carb diet or even a ketogenic diet. I think those two together really have the ability to push you over that edge when you're looking to lose some weight or make metabolic changes. Maybe get from pre-diabetic, like maybe you are pre-diabetic and you want to not have to go on insulin. Definitely try this type of practice. So hope you guys had a great day, and I will be back tomorrow to give you a little bit of an update, maybe some more information about fasting. Have a great day.